Hey guys, Steve Holland here. You normally have seen me behind the camera at the Texas High School Bass Association events, doing a little videoing for the kiddos. This time I'm going to do something different. I was at June 3rd, a week ago, and caught a bunch of crappie, and I'm going to show you how to catch them too, the way I did. Crappie on Lake Fork is outstanding right this time of year. You can catch them in less than 2 foot of water when they're spawning. Right now the fish are through spawning and they're sitting in trees and on bridges anywhere from 20 to 22 foot. On the video that you're going to see, I found these fish on isolated pole trees, and I mean pole trees are the ones that are standing. Could be bodark, they could be oak, they could be cedar, but the ones that are visible above the water. Please, kind of a note too, if you're wondering, say, well, where are all the brush piles at? Well, a lot of people who fish crappie use barges. Barges don't have a trolling motor like I do up here, and what they do, they'll bring brush in and they'll brush around these pole trees. So if you find a pole tree and you're looking around and you've actually gone to it, actually pull away from it and go around it and look at it, and you'll probably find a lot of other stuff that's been added to that pole tree. So I was fishing pole trees and brush piles in about 17 to 18 foot of water. I did a couple of things different than what some people do, and I want to show you what I did. First off, the tackle. I was using a 10 foot, I don't know if you can see that right there, Uncle Buck's, or BM, it's B&M, Buck's crappie 10 foot jigging pole, number 1. It's almost like a fly rod, but it is 10 foot. And the reason why I use a 10 foot rod is I don't have to do a lot of casting. And if you'll notice that, in fact, right here, if you'll look right above this eye, really close. Now I use braid to fish these crappie with. Now you're gonna say, well, why would you use braid? Well, first off, 10-pound test braid is the same as about 2-pound monofilament. Most people who fish crappie fish that diameter line. Plus, another thing I can tell you, the line size, or the size of the line, affects the jig more than it does the crappie. And the fact that once you use braid, if you get in a brush pile and get hung up, you can get your jig back, and I'll show you how I do that in just a minute. But you'll notice one thing that I do. I mark 20-foot increments on the rod, which means I can go right now and pull to that point on the water and find exactly where those fish are. I can go up or down depending upon where the mark is. That's 20 foot. And they say, well, if you don't have a tape measure, it's easy to measure. This rod is 10 foot long. This is 10 foot from the reel to the tip, and from this is 10 foot, and this is 10 foot out like that. So if I cast to that point, where is it? Right there. If I go to that point on my cast, and all I have to do is just pull it out just like that, pull it out, I can drop it down into my brush pile, pull it up, and then ride that bait down. Now I got a lot of bites a bunch of different ways, and most people think that if you put the jig in front of the crappie, they'll bite it. Well, yes they will, sometimes they don't. Crappie, just like most fish, predatory fish, have a strike zone. Sometimes during the year, I've seen people pull up on one pole tree and you just load the boat in one spot. Just boom, 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 boom. You'll notice in the film that I shot, I had to move around a little bit to catch fish, but I have, every time I've gone out, I've got my limit. Now granted, there are a lot of smaller fish in these brush piles and on these trees, and there's some big size brim too. A lot of times when you bring your crappie jig up and the tip of it's gone after a bite, that's probably a brim did that. So what I would advise you when you rig these things, bring in a little bit of super glue, put on the head of that, so because you can constantly have to push the jig back up to the jig head over and over again. If you put a little super glue over there, you can fish that until there's nothing left of that jig. Okay, so remember that tip too. So braid, 10-pound, 8-pound, which is about 2-pound test. I like the fluorescent yellow. You can see it. You see the bites. And again, the sensitivity of the braid excels over any kind of line, even fluorocarbon. That deep. I've caught a lot of crappie outside the mouth. They've just swam by it and I've caught it because of the sensitivity that you get. The B&M rods are real good. The blank runs completely through the handle. You have tremendous amounts of sensitivity here. There's the blank right here, right there. And you'll notice I'm using a Bass Pro Shop EXS7. This is the smallest extreme reel. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a reel. Really, realistically, you only need about 30 feet total. So if you want those little cheap crappie reel, you can put that on there too, or a little bait cast, you can put that on there too. But the reason I like the spinning reel is that if I'm out fishing and like say I need an extra foot, boom, I've got an extra foot. Just like that, because that's 12 inches from here to there. It's 12 inches, so I go, and I got an extra foot if I need to go down further, okay? So keep that in mind. And another thing too, occasionally, if you see by the video, you do get a black bass or two on these brush piles, and having a little extra drag helps a lot in landing a great big crappie or a bass, or sand bass for that matter. Okay, so the rod and the reel are took care of, the braids took care of. Let's talk about the knot. Now, for many years, I'd go out with these crappie guys that were real good crappie fishermen, and for whatever reason, we go catching, and they's always out catching me 5 to 1. I mean, they were wearing me out. But they forgot to tell me one little thing. That's how to tie the knot on a crappie jig. And honestly, I'm telling you, well, I'm a bass guy, always been a bass guy. And so I would take my jig head there. And oh, by the way, this is a Bass Pro Shop 1/8 ounce sickle hook. You don't miss them with that sickle hook. And another thing too, with the braid, if you get caught, if you get hung up, what happens when you put pressure to pull this jig out of the brush, this actually hook will bend back and it'll come out. You don't lose your rig. That's what I really like about the soft sickle hook on this bait here, on this jig head right there. That's a Bass Pro Shop brand. Now, the knot. What I used to do is tie a regular bass knot, Palomar knot, cinch knot, just, you know, whatever I tie. Clench knot, whatever. What I do, what they didn't tell me is that you need these, okay, crappie jigs like this one have 3, especially, and again, this bait is the Lake Fork baby shad. Outstanding. The reason, it's got so many ways to get them. One, it's broken. You see that right there, like the big swim baits? It's broken there. Movement 1. Movement 2, curly tail. And you'll notice that I rigged this thing with the curly tail down. That's kind of back from old swim date days. Always, you know, go down with it like that. You get a lot more action. And then the knot. The knot is so simple to tie, but it's so important. Some people call it a surgeon's knot. I don't know what you call it, but I call it a crappie knot. That's what it's called. Anyway, just there you go, like that. Get your tag line, got your main line. Excuse me. Just tie an overhand knot. Okay. Go through the loop 1 time. Okay. 2 times, like so. Then take that loop and put it on the eye, like so. See? Put your finger on it so it won't slip off, and then pull it to right. Usually I like it about 1/4. That's a little long, but it'll still work. But what I've done, I've got a loop knot there that will not slip. Will not slip at all. And he said, well, what does that have to do with the way the action of the bait works? When you put this, okay, it's hanging like this because of gravity, but you put it in that water, it goes just like that. It looks natural, like a bait fish would. You know, the minnows don't swim around like that unless they're dead or swimming up. But in a resting position, this jig sits horizontal from the bottom. If you jig down, and of course, you remember when you jig, you don't jig up, you jig down. You jig down and then what happens, this drops it and it goes, choop, choop. It stays horizontal or perpendicular to the string, however you want to say it. And then what it does, it looks more natural to them. I didn't know that would make that much difference, but it does a tremendous difference in the way your crappie jigs act. whether it's marabou, whether it's rubber like this, whatever jig you're using, throwing that loop knot on there makes all the difference. I testify all the difference in the world. Now, fishing it. Most people, when they're really biting, you drop it down in the brush pile, you get a bite, pull down on the bite, you pull up and you got your crappie. No problem, that's usually what happens. But if you look at the video that I posted, a lot of the bigger fish that I was catching, I was dropping it all the way to the bottom. And again, I was pulling it out, let it drop. And then once I got to the bottom, I started reeling up real slow. Crappie, just like bass, have strike zones. And sometimes, and of course, especially in the wintertime, they'll stratify depending upon the water temperature and the clarity, and you can see them on the graph like this. Under a bridge piling, they'll be piled up like this. And they look like every one of them's in the same depth. This time of year, not necessarily. They can range from, I've had fish hit in 4 or 5 foot of water right now, all the way down to 22 foot of water. So when you drop this down into your tree and you start reeling it back up real slow, it's a bite just like a bass bite. I mean, it's just boom, or the bait will be pulled really slow, just like you're almost hung up, but it'll be a fish. A lot of my bigger fish came that way, catching that fish that way. Actually dropping it down into the tree and then bringing it straight up, and that was a really good technique, especially catching the bigger fish that I did. The bait again to use is the Lake Fork tackle, baby shad, and again, there's all different types of makes of crappie jigs, and I'm sure that whatever you're comfortable with, you could probably catch them. I'm just saying that the chartreuse really seemed to outproduce anything else I tried. You'll notice here little things like the chartreuse head. Now you can get pink heads, blue heads, purple heads, white heads, but I threw a chartreuse head with little red eyes on it, and that seemed to make a lot of difference too. Color-wise, you got chartreuse pearl, and another color I used too was the lime truce. I think it's called lime truce. Yeah, lime truce, Lake Fork, and it's of course the baby shad, the type that I used there as well. If you're going out to Lake Fork, it is full, big time. So be sure to go slow, stay in the lanes. Don't think that, oh man, I don't see a stump anywhere. Believe me, it's just the lake is full. And it's probably more dangerous than it ever is. So if you see a flat of trees, and again, I'm just looking for trees in a flat. I'm not necessarily looking for a creek channel or anything like that. I'm looking at a flat in about 20 foot, 17 to 20 foot of water, and I can use the electronics to either go by it and look to the side, or I can fish it this ways too. And again, if I have a lot of trees in the area, it's a lot easier to me just to go to tree to tree to tree to tree and make drops until you find a fish or 2 or 3, and then you can investigate it further or stay longer. But again, I did have to move around to get bit, especially to get a limit, which is 25 in Texas. Now remember, the fish have to be at least 10 inches long, especially in the summertime on Lake Fork. It's not like in the wintertime when you have to catch the first 25 you catch, regardless what size they are. And the reason being is that in the wintertime you catch them below in very deep water, very cold water, and a lot of times those fish don't survive when you pull them on. But these fish do. So you can be sure it has to be at least 10 inches minimum, 25 per person per day. And again, go slow, stay in the channel, in the places marked with the buoys. And again, if you idle into a flat of trees, go slow, because there's a lot of stuff that is not showing now that's there, believe me. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you did learn something about the rig itself. I enjoy catching crappie, especially since I'm getting a little older, bass fishing, and of course dealing with the association kind of keeps me from being competitive bass fishing anymore, but I do enjoy doing this tremendously, and I hope that you enjoy it too. If you like this video, hit like. If you want to comment about it, please comment. If you want to subscribe to it, go ahead. There will be a subscription to further videos that I'm going to be trying to make during the rest of this summer and maybe this fall. But again, I just wanted to share this experience with you. It's a fun way to fish. It's an easy way to fish. And again, just be careful when you go, especially places like Lake Fork. Be careful, and again, take a kid fishing with you, and we'll be seeing you on the lake.